give me a very short tip for people in solo queue.
If the enemy plays enchanters, leave the lane as support. Just go everywhere else. You're smart. You can gank.
You're smart. Broxah?
Ban Yumi. Yeah, that's
excellent.
Good luck.
That's better than mine. That's better than mine.
What up, everyone, and welcome back to Recall, a bi-weekly global League of Legends podcast where we cover all the upcoming news and most important matches around the world. I am still your host, Froskurinn, and I am still joined by the incredibly lovely, talented, and very eloquent Medic and Broxah. How have you gentlemen been doing?
Yes, how are you doing, Medic?
I'm okay. I'm quite tired. I was shooting an LEC thing all day. Very fun LEC thing.
Give us the deets. Leak now.
Wait, when's this? This comes out next week, right?
Yeah. You can leak it. It's fine.
It's a fun thing between Mad Lions and Vitality, and I had to eat some stuff that I didn't really want to eat. So that's as much leak as I can do, because it comes out next week as well. So maybe that's a sneak peek. Maybe also you've seen me eat the disgusting thing.
I can leak too because of embargo. I gotta review Stray, and I've got 2 days to do it. It's the game about the cat.
Oh, that game looks amazing. I really want to play that game.
I just got my tester code. It's literally downloading right now. So after this podcast, I have to just jam that one out.
That'll be nice.
Gonna be busy.
Broxah, any leaks?
I don't think I have any leaks, unfortunately, but I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing this video with Medic eating something disgusting and making faces, I assume. So
is it alive? Was it once alive?
I mean, most things that we eat were once alive.
That is true.
Yes, it was once
That's
alive.
a smart answer, actually.
Yeah.
I once did an event. I was the Kespa Cup, actually, and the finals were in Busan. And so Dracos and I were in Busan, and to do like some promotional video to it, they made us eat like traditional South Korean delicacies, which are these tiny little octopi. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that you kill them when you put them in your mouth and crush them. So it is a very interesting...
I've heard about that.
Yeah, very interesting sensation, and you can feel them wiggle on the way down.
Oh, okay, I couldn't do that.
I remember when we were in Busan for Worlds in 2018, I think it was. They were talking about this, and someone was like memeing about whether we should do it or not, and I was just like, oh no.
Yeah, it was an adventure. Apparently they don't serve it to like the elderly or the young, because there's obviously like a choking hazard with the octopi, and you're welcome for that visual. Speaking of South Korea, you like this segue? See how we did this?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the South Korean player. In fact, maybe the player in all of all of esports. Faker has now completed his 500th win. Now, when we were doing the rundown for the show, there was we're constantly celebrating Faker. It feels like we can't go like 3 weeks or 3 episodes without being like, oh yeah, this guy Faker is pretty good. But what's crazy to me is that new esports fans new League of Legends esports fans, like they recognize that Faker is good, but they weren't really around for like his true dominance, and everyone knows his name. But my question to you guys is that will there ever be like another Faker? Because Faker in his quote is like, eventually there will be another iteration of me. Like I was early on into this game, and so in the future there will be a Faker 2.0. But I feel like that's kind of like really positive about Faker. I feel like he's kind of like a once in a lifetime type of player.
I think it's really interesting for esports because it's still so new, right? Like, how long has Faker been around? 8-9 years or something, and esports has been around like being popular for maybe 10-15 years. But if you look at a game like football, for example, I'm sure that back in the day when people thought about Diego Maradona or Ronaldo, they were like, oh, no one's ever going to be this good. But now we literally have a second Ronaldo who's probably just as amazing, if not even more. And I think with esports, it's an interesting one with Faker because, right now he's seeming pretty godly to all of us humans, right? But I feel like one day there should be someone to challenge him, and I think more than anything, I'm really excited to see how long he manages to stick around, and also what he does when he actually finishes playing, because everything is so new, there's so many directions you see players going, and players haven't been lasting that many years yet. Faker obviously being one of the longest standing ones so far.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting division in sports world, right? Because as you say, in football, there's like a lot of stars that we've seen rise up over the years. Maradonas, Pele's, Ronaldo's, etc. But then you look at something like basketball, and although there are a lot of great basketball players, I think if I said to you name the most famous basketball player, everyone would say Michael Jordan. Right? In the same way, if I said name the most famous league player, everyone would say Faker right now. And for a while in like Formula One, Michael Schumacher was the same, right? It was like Schumacher. Before that, Ayrton Senna, and then Hamilton kind of rose into that position as well. So I wonder if I think there's two layers of what Faker could do. Right? Either he comes back this year and starts to win a bunch of stuff again, or like get into the finals again. But probably win. He probably needs to win to like cement his legacy as the greatest we will ever see. Or he has a bit of a comeback, doesn't win stuff, and then I think we could see another Faker level talent come out in the future. But if Faker comes back and like three-peats again, I think there's only ever going to be one.
I think if we're using real-world sports analogies, I feel like Faker is very close to Tiger Woods, where he came in, kind of redefined the game, and it wasn't just like his ability, it was also kind of everything that was around him as well, because there's also like the Faker persona and just kind of like how esteemed he is. Went away, obviously, because Tiger got injured, and then everyone was like, you can't come back to his height, his prime, and not that people were ever doubting Faker, but to consistently be at the top level for as long as he was, I think kind of comes to mind. What's interesting is that in esports, I'm not going to be able to name the chair, but everyone knows the famous throne that Faker sits on. And I remember when the OGN videos before Riot took over the broadcast and having Faker sit in the chair, it was always a really big deal because there had only ever been legends of esports that had sat in the chair previously for the StarCraft players. And like, there's really well-known StarCraft players, and I think also CSGO has kind of elevated to that level for how long it's been around, like the greats. But for League of Legends, it's interesting how we define Faker as like the GOAT because of his trophy case and his ability, because there have been plenty of players who at some point in their career, probably namely Rookie, even though we haven't really ever gotten the great Rookie Faker showdown, of like players who have eclipsed Faker in terms of their playing ability at one timeline or another, but never to have eclipsed his playing ability, his trophy case, the prestige around him, and kind of like the mystique that is Faker. There's never been a player that has that all-encompassing one. And so do we think that this is it for League of Legends, that it's just too hard to acquire all of that, or do you think that there will ever be someone who can win multiple world championships, also play at the top of their game, and do so for, 7+ years?
I think it's really tricky, right? Because as you're saying, there's so many things that have to come together, and I think in particular, in my mind, him like changing how the game is played is something that's gonna be really hard to achieve at this point in time. If I look at some of the other players from LCK that I think could get anywhere near him at some point in the future, if I would look at the ones that are playing right now, it would be the likes of maybe a Chovy, Showmaker, or a Canyon, who have all accomplished a lot and done a lot of great things, but at the same time, what they need to achieve to ever like have the amount of trophies Faker has, it's like absolutely ridiculous. And because of the state that League is in at this point in time, or when they started, they haven't been able to really change the game either. The game was just played in a certain way, and they've been able to like just perfect it, you could say. So who knows? Like maybe one of these guys can stick around long enough to make it and challenge him. I think Chovy already is number 14 in terms of LCK kills. LCK all-time wins, where Faker obviously just hit 500. But yeah, it's interesting and probably almost an impossible task, to be honest.
Yeah, I think some of it does come down to the ability to dominate the game, right? I think League of Legends has dramatically changed from when Faker rose, and like Faker was able to win 1v9 a lot of the time. And he didn't need to. He had great players around him. Like, no shame to any of the other players on SKT at the time. But you could tell it was a faker show. And you don't have that same impact now. Like, Caps kind of had it a little bit when he joined LEC. Like, there were games that Caps would just win for you. But even then, he just didn't control the game in the same way that you could have done in Season 2 and in Season 3. So I think with League changing to much more team-orientated and much harder just to 1v9, I think that it would be very difficult for someone to have the same impact as Faker. And that mystique that you were talking about, that dominance and control of a game where if Faker loads onto the Rift, everyone on your team is scared.
It's funny. He's kind of like the combination of like Steph Curry, King James, and Michael Jordan. He's got like the prestige of Michael Jordan in like the beginning game, and then played in like the reinvented era when Curry came in and was like 3 points all day long. Like, now you have to change the rules of the game, and then the dominance of like LeBron James for as long as he's been around. Pretty wild. Is there any like stat in particular that sticks out to you guys for Faker? I mean, for me personally, it's always been his competence over every single champion. It feels like Faker could lock in anything, and you're going to see this probably piloted to the highest level possible. And there are still certain picks like his famous LeBlanc where you know when you're going to see it that it's just going to be something special.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, his top 9 most played champions of all time all have above 60% win rate, which is just absurd to me. Like, top 9. Some people haven't even played 9 different champions at the competitive level. Like, Zoe is 10th and has a 56% win rate. The guy's absurd. And it's the consistency as well. Like, all-time 67% win rate in LCK, one of the most competitive regions in the world, alongside international. And then even this year, he's up to 80% again, with T1 being as dominant as they are in the LCK. Like, the guy, he's a monster, and obviously his team helps him with that. But to see someone this consistently good is incredible to me.
I think that the champion one is the one that sticks out to me as well, because he has played 72 different champions throughout his career, and I thought it would be fun to compare to me, because I'm obviously not someone who's been around since the start like he has. But I've played. To yourself, Broxah? I've played for 5 years, which is a pretty long time, and I only have 33. And it's like, I'm a jungler, so it's like slightly different because mid laners have like really deep champion pools. There's so many champions they need to master. Usually, as a jungler, you have like a core of maybe 5 champions. Often mid laners have like 10 to 15 from my experience. But the fact that the guy has so many champions is absolutely ridiculous to think about, because I remember going through phases of having to learn like so many different champions coming out, and it's not even like half of what this guy has played. It's pretty incredible.
But he's never won on Quinn. One game played, he lost it. All you have to do is get that one competitive Quinn game, Broxah, and you're better than Faker. That's how it works.
Oh, do you think Quinn jungle is going to be viable?
Yeah, 100%. You get the vision control, you can zoom around, get the Harrier passive on, you know?
The thing is I wish Quinn would be, like, there was, like, that small window where she was meta, and, like, we saw her at the international level, but I just think she's such a fun champion. Unfortunately, she's, like, one of those champions, I feel like Vladimir, like, when she's in meta, it's because, like, it's like a stat check, and you're like, well, this sucks, as opposed to, like, the skill expression of the champion. Sorry, big Quinn player. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the LCK standings, because, again, we didn't really have LCS this weekend. We will be talking about it a little bit later as we preview some of the matches upcoming. But first and foremost, our Korean brothers. Right now, at the top of the standings, surprise, surprise, no one's shocked, it's Gen G and T1. But a little bit more surprising is SANDBOX rising up, because this was supposed to be kind of a 4-horse race, preferably about 3 horses, depending on where you sat with DRX or Damwon Kia. But everyone was like, okay, Gen G, T1, we know they're good. Then it's probably either Damwon or DRX. But now SANDBOX has kind of popped up there. Do you guys have any strong opinions on SANDBOX about rating them? Are they actually a good team? Is this a CLG scenario?
I think there's a little bit of CLG to it. Like, I don't want to like put them in. So I don't think it's as harsh as it was with CLG, where I think they were very overinflated. I think SANDBOX is like a middle of the pack team. I think they will get into playoffs. I think they'll probably lose in the first or second round of playoffs, and we're not going to see them in the LCK finals. But if you look at their record, like, They've lost to Darmwon. They've lost to T1. They beat DRX 2-1 because they picked Azir into Gangplank top lane. And Croco had a really good game that game as well. But it was an odd draft really from DRX that I think cost them more than anything else. But then apart from that, they've beaten Katie, Nongshim, Hanwha, and Fredit Brion, right? And it's cool. You've beaten the bottom 5 teams who all look pretty decisively like the bottom 5 teams. You're gonna end up in 6th. They're a good team. I think Croco's playing really well. I really like his jungle style, but I don't think they are
You're
T1
saying they're
level.
the benchmark.
They're at the cusp of they're the old school Splice, right? They're the gatekeepers of playoffs in LCK.
It's just a typical middle of the pack team, where they beat everyone below them, but then when they match up against the top teams, they're having a bit of a difficult time. I think one thing that's really cool about them that I've really liked seeing is that their jungler just randomly plays Vi all the time. And it's no one really plays Vi. It's like CLG memories from last year. No one really plays Vi, but for some reason, Croco just... He has so many Vi games, 5 out of 7 times of Vi being played in the LCK. That was all him, and I'm sure he was the one who got others to play it as well. And someone being this creative, just randomly logging Vi out of nowhere, I find that pretty respectable and cool, to be honest. And of course, some personal bias for the champion as well.
I mean, Owner was doing it for a while as well, right? We saw it at MSI. The first game I think he played at MSI was a Vi game, wasn't it? So maybe it's just an LCK thing where
we've
Sultan battery lockdown is...
Well, so is Azir Top. Azir Top's been played globally, but I remember when we were boot camping, and this was way back when. We boot camped in Shanghai, and we were scrimming a lot and playing on Korean solo queue ladder, and Azir Top had always been a pocket pick that a lot of... challenger players were playing because they really like it into specific matchups, like Gangplank, because of the range advantage. So I always think it's hilarious when Azir Top gets pulled out. I'm like, it was probably a Korean team, wasn't it? I just love that in solo queue. But speaking of Fredit Brion, if you guys haven't been watching the LCK, this team is sitting 0-8 right now. It is not a good time for budget Reddit. Every time I look at their name, that's always what I want to call them.
Reddit, yeah.
Yeah, Reddit. It's not great branding. They've only taken a single game. They are currently 1-16 with a 6% win rate. Bets over under on them picking up a series win?
Oh, they'll grab one somewhere, won't they? It will be a dumb one as well.
It will be they take down Gingy.
They're going to win something at some point. I don't know. Has a team... Oh, Jin went 0-18 in LCK in 2019 summer. I'm looking back to see if there's any other 0-18 teams, but it isn't the most common thing to have a team not be able to pick up a single win. Although in a best of 3, I guess it's slightly more common because you have...
more chances.
A better team is more likely to win over 3 games, right? But yeah, I expect that they'll grab one BO3 win before the end.
Do you think it'll be DRX? It'll be a really important game for DRX to win for placement in playoffs, and Fredit will be and get fucked.
That would be so typical, wouldn't it? It's at one point when they realize there's no pressure at all, and they just go beast mode and start taking down people. I feel
what is that, Broxah? That always happens, regardless of region or team. What is happening mentally? Is it simply I've got nothing to lose, so let's just style on people?
Well, I've been in the same situation a lot of times before, especially while being on Fnatic, where I think it's just when you have your backs against the wall and there literally is nothing to lose anymore. It's just kind of a mindset change for the team as a whole. I remember back in 2017 when we had our miracle run at Worlds. We went 0-3 the first week. And I think the day before we played the second phase of group stage, we were already talking about our flights and when we were going to go home and whatnot. But then at some point we had a team talk and we were like, guys, it's doomed. Don't worry. There's no pressure anymore. You can't look any worse than you already do. Just YOLO it, pick some aggressive champs and hope for the best. And then
was that the Garen Yumi year?
No. That was 2019. That was 2 years later.
That was the Wild Turtle ulting. He ulted Caps back, right? On the Casio. You jump forward on the Tristana.
Yeah!
It's the Wild Turtle moment.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right, actually. But yeah, my point was going to be that I think sometimes when you have your backs against the wall and there's no pressure, you just everyone's playing like more loose. Everyone's playing a bit crazy. Like for us that year, we went from playing tank jungle like Sejuani Gragas every game to just locking in like Rek'Sai Elise and just going crazy mode. And I think that mindset change can be really scary actually. And I also think like one way or another they're gonna pick up a win, because to be honest, even though it's best of threes, which makes it harder, it's almost as rare to see someone go 0-18 as 18-0. It's probably the same urgency to be fair. It's just so difficult, honestly, to even make it to that point. So they must be beating someone.
I'll just clarify, it was Cody's son, not Wild Turtle. I don't want to put the wrong person under the bus for the ulting Tristana back.
Oh, the Codison moment.
Yeah,
Wasn't that the year after?
Was that the year after?
That was 18. That was 18, I think.
Okay.
We had a lot of great moments against them. Let's just put it
look
that
up
way.
the highlight. It was great.
Why is it always like North American 80 carries on an international stage? Just like total blunders sometimes. There's like a Cody Sun moment. I think that there's a Stixay moment. Stixay also had a pop-off moment at an international. Of course, famously double lift in Victor.
I think the thing is, it happens with all AD carry. It happens with all players. Let's be honest. Like every player who's played at international level has made that sort of mistake. It's just people kind of like pooping on NA a little bit, and like we've all been there, right? Like I'm sure every EU fan and every like fan from every other region has been like, "Hey guys, you made a mistake." Even NA fans flame their own teams, but it's just people notice those mistakes more because they tend to be the reason the team doesn't make it out of the group rather than the reason the team doesn't get first in the group or the reason the team has to play for an extra 10 minutes.
It's more punishing.
Game, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think so. I think people are already looking out for them, just waiting for someone to make a mistake. And then when someone makes that mistake, the fans refuse to let that person ever forget about it. Yeah. It's kind of brutal.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like, we already have, just as normal people, just those moments where you're laying in bed and you just, like, remember something embarrassing happening in 5th grade and then you just can't sleep. And Broxah, you have to lay there and just be like, shit.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there's one game in 2020 on TL where I was playing Graves and I didn't get a kill or assist for, like, 20 minutes or something. And man, social media was a rough place for a while because no matter what I did and no matter how any of the games went, it was just like, this guy is so passive. Yeah. Do you guys remember this game where he wasn't part of a kill for 20 minutes? What a bad player. It's just once that storyline, that narrative is started, it's kind of hard to stop.
Rolled. People just keep like, I remember a Meteos game. I can't even remember who they played, but he was playing Lee. And he didn't do anything for 90 minutes. 60 minutes to learn how to play Lee Sin. And it's like, how do I remember that? Like, Meteos was a great player. But that's the thing I remember.
To be fair, in that game, he did have like a crazy insect kick at the very end.
He played incredibly well to win the game for them, but I still remember that it took him 60 minutes to learn how to play Lee Sin me.
I think that was 2015. Anyway, moving on to the LCS, where we're not going to dunk on them because they didn't play this week. They were off for 4th of July, I believe, but that does mean that they got a nice rest week, and we get to kind of look ahead at some of the big matchups this weekend. So, big matchups are, of course, going to be Evil Geniuses versus 100 Thieves, and depending on how high you have CLG, it's TL versus CLG for one last chance for CLG to prove that they're the real deal after going 2-0 last week. But I really want to open this up on TL, because we just had the LCS game day, so I got a chance to talk to Raz and Kobe, and we were pretty much like aligned, and I'm curious to pick up your guys' take that TL are, to me, they're kind of like Splice in that they're very consistent and they kind of do the same thing every single game, but I feel like there's no like teeth there behind the bite. Every time I watch a TL game, I'm like, they're really good at punishing when teams make mistakes into them, but they're not as proactive as I would like them to be for the names that they have on that roster.
So this is one thing that to me is really interesting, and obviously I'm always going to have a slight bias towards Team Liquid because I am part of the organization, but if you look back at CL the past 5-6 years, I think the playstyle has almost always been the same, in the sense that they're like super consistent, they don't play super fast or proactive or aggressive, and it doesn't really matter what iteration of Team Liquid you're looking at, that's just the way it's been. When I was on Fnatic and we played against TL, we were like, guys, it's going to be pretty chill. These guys are going to play slow. It's going to be all about the macro. But if we play fast and aggressive, we're probably going to get an early advantage. And I know when I came in 2020, this was one of the things that we wanted to try to change, but we never really managed to find our footing with the aggressive play style, and we kind of ended up going back to what worked in the past. And I think, in a way, you could say this is a bit of an perhaps evil cycle that CL as an organization has gone into, where you try to move out of your comfort zone, you try something different as an organization, as a team, with mixed results, but then it's easy to go back to what you know is going to work, right? And in the LCS in particular, the opponents are going to make a lot of mistakes. So if you lock in your scaling comp, you play, safe, and just wait for them to make mistakes, they're going to keep making mistakes, giving you leads, and then eventually with your scaling comp, you're going to get ahead and you're going to win. Is it exciting to watch? Probably not so much. And is it gonna put you in a good position going into Worlds? Probably not either, because it's not really gonna work against LPL, LCK, even EU like we've seen in the past. But at the same time, TL has been open about wanting to change this. They also keep bringing in players that have been known for aggression, like me coming from Fnatic, like Bwipo, super aggressive player, and Sama as well. And I think this is a really, really big challenge the organization faces, not only now, but in the past as well. Like how you integrate these aggressive players in the team and let that aggression remain intact, rather than, falling back onto this safe and kind of boring playstyle. Right now, I think it's definitely justified saying that it's a bit boring to watch TL games because they're so slow. But I'm hoping that throughout Summer Split, this is something that can change going into Worlds.
Do you think they're a little bit hamstrung by the meta at the moment as well, though? Because like, if your natural tendency as an organization or as a team is to play slow, and then the meta is Corki is in mid lane, Enchanter bot lane with the scaling AD carry, jungler that can gank but doesn't actually have to be that proactive in the early game, and scaling top, like it feels that it's very easy for them to fall into that hole once again. And I think the big thing that, like you mentioned, is it's not going to help them at Worlds, but also it's not going to help them against the best LCS teams anymore, because you can't rely on like 100 Thieves to make mistakes like that. You can't rely on EG to make mistakes like that. And maybe they'll give you small windows, but they're not going to like open the door in the same way that a FlyQuest or a CLG would. So I worry actually then for TL, if that's what their propensity is as a team, that as the split goes on, maybe they'll end third, maybe they'll get a world spot, but they're not prepared for Worlds in terms of being able to play proactive in the early game against teams that definitely will against them on the world stage. And also they're likely not going to be able to beat 100 Thieves or an EG who are more proactive in the early game for a final spot.
I think watching TL versus CLG was really telling, because CLG had done the same thing basically all of their games, where they really prioritize having strong bottom side matchups and jungle matchups, and they really like to invade or early invade that blue buff and contest it. And immediately when CLG and was it TL? Now I'm actually like doubting myself. No, it was Bjergsen. He was playing Swain, and they actually collapsed onto the blue buff when they got invaded. And it was just like, it was so set up because you could tell that TL had prepared for it. So I think TL are really strong against teams that have like a very specific strategy and style and are easy to scout, and they can punish that very easy because, as Broxah said, their macro is so solid. But the issue is that they just play standard. And I think against higher level teams that can match them pound for pound talent-wise, because they are still a star-studded roster that can simply just outmuscle and outplay you. But as soon as you have that creativity of the other top tier teams, that's when I think TL get into trouble, because they're not really pressured in the LCS that much. I mean, you're really only ever going to be pressured like that internationally, like not even in a lot of domestic regions. I think maybe LPL would be kind of LEC, I would say, would kind of be like the outliers of teams sometimes just like throw really strange curveballs at you. And I think when TL don't get to play that standardized League of Legends, when you break the game on them, that's when they really shut down and kind of fall apart.
It also means that there's a big meta shift. Like if Worlds changes and we have an early aggressive focus Worlds, then you haven't actually been prepping that at all. Like, you've been prepping this slower macro, this slower gameplay. And although other teams, maybe you can say, well, the other teams aren't doing that either because the gameplay is just generally slower. You have to be looking for those proactive moves in the early game. And I'm not saying TL can't do that. I'm just saying they tend to stick to this slower scaling style that punishes enemy mistakes, but a lot of enemies won't give you those opportunities.
I think that there's definitely a world where TL can be more proactive, and I think especially with the Hans Sama, the Bwipo pickups, it's a bit surprising they haven't been yet, because both Hans Sama and Bwipo have extremely aggressive mindsets. They want to play aggressive champions. They want to put themselves ahead. This is what they've been known for in Europe for their entire careers, really. And then you have Core in a support role, who's a really strong playmaking support. When I played with Core, I always thought it was a shame when he had to play something a little safer like an Enchanter, because when he's in a playmaker, he's unleashed and he can make so many things happen. So you have 3 playmakers, in a sense, aggressive players, paired with Bjergsen and Santorin, who's probably going to be the most stable mid-jungle duo you can find. Like, these guys are so consistent, and they should be able to set up the aggressive side lanes so incredibly well. And for TL, more than anything, I think it's just going to come down to finding their footing and being able to find that proactivity and unleashing these new European players to do what they're so good at. And I also think how well the organization, how well the coaches and players manages to do in that is going to determine whether they can win the summer split or not. Because when you go up against the likes of EG, 103 C9, you're going to need to throw some curveballs in order to beat them in a best of 5.
As we look at the standings and kind of the top teams, do we think that TL is kind of just scraping in at that 3rd spot? Do we feel that 100 Thieves and EG are the stronger teams? Because obviously, for standings purposes, Evil Genius is 6-1, TL and 100 Thieves are tied for 5-2, and then it's CLG, FlyQuest, and Cloud9. Like, remember us, we're coming back, guys.
I think CLG are just going to keep dropping down the standings. So there's definitely like the Cloud9 rising up and maybe FlyQuest challenging there as well. But the top 3 should be EG, 100 Thieves, and TL. I personally, especially off the back of this discussion, would rate EG and 100 Thieves higher than TL. Until we see more of that early game proactivity. So my expectation is that we'll see the standings kind of play out that same way. But we do have, there's 8 teams making it through an LCS. So who knows? We'll get to playoffs and Dignitas will be the best of 5 team we've ever seen in our lives. So take the title. Just go straight through everyone.
Hilariously, Raz was really on the Dignitas train. He's like, they are going to rise up. And I was like, what are you smoking right now?
That's what I said in the last recall episode too. I was on the Dignitas hype train too.
Everyone is on Dig right now. Go on, sell me, Broxah.
Well, what I said back then was it was all about the Blue River mid jungle duo, because I think ever since River came into the LCS, he's been looking really dominant, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Seeing him come into that roster, it seemed like kind of a random pickup to me, but he's just been shining a lot. And Blue in the mid lane, who many thought, wouldn't be the most impressive because he didn't look super impressive while being in the LEC, has also been super stable and dominant. And I mean, of course, as a jungler, seeing that beautiful mid jungle duo in action with their great performances always makes me pretty happy. But there's no doubt that when it comes to the team-wide aspect, when you compare Dignitas to the top teams, it's not looking that great.
Turning over to the LEC, where the standings are a bit more spread out in the LCS, the standings are neck and neck in the LEC. This is basically a fist fight here. Now, Fnatic has not sunk down. I know that we had some questions and concerns over Fnatic, that it was either going to be like a feast or a famine for this team. Either they're going to find the momentum, they'll fix their problems, and they'll be full steam ahead, or they maybe hit a hiccup and start tumbling down. But right now, tied for first alongside Rogue and Excel, and big matchup for them this weekend on Saturday, it is Fnatic versus Excel. And I really want to focus in on that matchup because I feel like you guys are fine to be like Excel or the real deal.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
sure.
Good team.
We are all on the Excel hype train, but versus Fnatic, what are you guys, even break it down to like percentages, even if you feel like it's a 50-50, like is it 20-80 to a team? Is it more 50-50, 40-60?
I think it's hard to say in terms of percentages because I literally think it's all going to come down to Razork.
Yeah, it's jungle.
And I'm
right?
saying that, yeah, and I'm saying that because Marcoon so far has looked like the best jungler in the LEC, without a doubt. And Razork has looked extremely inconsistent. Like when Fnatic played against G2, he was like absolutely dumpstering everyone on Viego and he looked absolutely amazing. But that's like the one game, the split, where I've been like super convinced that this guy is like a top jungler. And if he starts finding that form and he shows up like this against Excel and, you know, destroys Marcoon the way that he destroyed Yankos, then I think Fnatic is gonna be in a really, really good spot. Because I think Excel rely heavily on Marcoon, getting them early advantages and giving them a lead. And in the lanes, I think Fnatic is going to be more than fine. So it's really going to come down to that position. I would say probably. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to say it's a 50-50. I think Excel has a 70% chance. That would be my prediction.
70%? You're going 70-30 XL?
I'm going to say 70 because I think while Fnatic has really, really good individual players, and while they have had good moments, there's been a lot of sketchy ones as well. And sure, they've secured a lot of wins for themselves, but a lot of them didn't look that impressive, and a lot of them were very, very close, right? Obviously, BDS one coming to mind here, but I just think when it comes to the team synergy and cohesion, Excel is on a lower level.
I think that's a perfect way to put it. Is like Excel are like the team, and Fnatic rely a bit more on like the individual pop-off factor.
Exactly. That's how I feel about it. And then when it comes to that, I would take the team in this current moment because the pop-off factor hasn't been there the same way that it was in spring.
I mean, I agree that I think XL are going to win. I just would be more like 55-45. I think Fnatic...
Wow, that's really close.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Fnatic, like, they seem to be a very momentum-driven team, right? And they're coming off the back of a few good wins in a row. They beat G2, which is huge for the organization, at least. Maybe the players don't feel it as much, but I know, like, there's a lot of long-time Fnatic players on that team, or a few people that have been there at least for a couple of years. So having that sort of... that rivalry, you know, the long-standing rivalry, winning that is always big for players in the LEC. I also think that it does, as you say, come down to Razork a lot, but Wonder is in much better form than he was when they first played up against XL, and like his Gragas at the moment looks like a true 1v5 champion. Like he is absolutely schooling people on it. Upset and Hylissang have looked a little disappointing to me, but I think Humanoid is finding his groove a little bit more with the team now. So XL look more beatable than they did at the start of the split when they beat Fnatic. Fnatic looks stronger, and it does come down to Razork, but I think the difference between Fnatic being a full team of individuals and XL being this like cohesive unit is less, at least, than it was in week one. I think that gap has shrunk, and I take Fnatic players in probably every role apart from jungle. I would give them a slight edge just on pedigree, if perhaps not on current form.
I think it's like if it's an Excel win, it's because their mid jungle did exactly what you expect them to do, facilitate a star jungler. And if Fnatic win, it's because jungle support were stabilized and had stronger games because they are kind of inconsistent or swingy players, especially in the current meta. And I then emphasize Excel because if it's about Excel just like playing to what you know that they can play versus like hoping that you see the best version of Fnatic, then it's probably more likely to bet on the more consistent or stable team.
I can see that. I think actually historically Mickey's had Hylissang's number as well. Like the last few times they met, I remember Mickey coming out on top of that. So maybe I'd err more to a 60-40 than a 55-45. I still think it's closer than 70-30 though.
I also think
which is fair. Well, I wanted to spice it up a little.
I know. You be as spicy as you want. If Broxah no longer likes Fnatic, now TL player only.
Oh man, I swear every time I make predictions for the LEC and I don't include Fnatic, Oh, it's a tough time. I need to.
Fnatic fans, they come out to like.
Look very far away from my inbox in that comment section. It's a scary place. I'm telling you. The Fnatic fans are disappointed. Sorry, everyone out there.
Taking a look at the overall larger standings, so zooming out a bit, it is a really intense race. Again, these teams are very close. There is only 3 spots for Worlds, and I think like 5 teams that theoretically have a really good shot going, maybe 6. Who are we gonna kill? You can
kill Vitality.
You're killing Vitality?
I think they'll make playoffs, and I think that's about it. And yeah, then alongside them, it's actually quite tough. I wonder if Mad Lions. I think Mad Lions will make it through. I think Rogue, and I'm gonna say XL will die. It'll be Fnatic, Mad, and G2 making it to Worlds this year.
Wow, really? I think it's XL, Fnatic, G2.
The thing with XL is, I really believe they are good enough to make Worlds. I think they're going to get to best of 5s and struggle, just because they don't have as much best of 5 experience as the other teams, and like as much experience adapting to it.
Look at the names on that roster. Like, maybe not best of 5 experience collectively as a roster, but those players have so much experience in best of 5s.
I mean, like, do they though? Because like Nuke Duck has a few from a long time ago.
That guy has played forever.
Does. Yeah, but he did. Like, when was the last time he made playoffs? Like, Finn was on CLG, and before that he was on Rogue, but they struggled with him. Mickey obviously has a bit of pedigree there, but then Patrick, you know, he hasn't actually made that many like high stakes games apart from trying to make playoffs games in the last few years.
I disagree. I think Patrick has actually been really solid for a really long time. I think Patrick
he's a great player. He just hasn't made best of 5s.
Well, no, but even when he did go into like big games, I think the first time he made playoffs, he was like Ashe was like his big pick, and he was so solid, but he got overshadowed because everyone else on his team was like very inconsistent, either running it down or like trying to save the game, and Patrick's just there on Ashe. Like, I think this was with the Origin days, like, holy shit, guys, please stop. Yeah, he went to best of 5s with Origin.
Semi-final against G2, where they
lost.
They lost 0-3 though. But that was 2019. That's 3 years ago. Compare that to G2, who just had a best of 5 versus T1 at MSI.
All I'm saying is I think it's a bit unfair to try to like discount XL in a best of 5 when they've got some fucking grandpas on that team. Like, that is they're like, back in my day, it was 3-0 versus G2.
They don't have recent best of 5 experience to the highest level. I think that's why they'll lose out. That is what I'm sticking with.
You know what? I think Rogue is gonna make it. I think Rogue has to make it. Like, I don't even know.
Instead of
who. I would say G2 makes it. G2 is like the obvious one in my.
So they're Mary.
And then there's like 2 question marks. Rogue would be one of my question marks, and I think the other one would be Fnatic or XL most likely, but who knows?
Broxah, you can't fuck 3 teams. You have to pick one, and then you have to kill one.
Yep. Who's going to Worlds, Broxah? G2,
Rogue, and Astralis. No, I don't know.
Say Fnatic, Broxah, for the sake of your inbox.
Yeah, I'll say Fnatic. Let's say Fnatic. No, but seriously,
why not? Why not XL, Broxah? Huh? Why aren't XL making?
Because apparently they don't have any experience in best of 5s.
No recent experience in best of 5s. I agree with you, Broxah. Very smart.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, coming into spring, I had no faith in them in playoffs at all. I expected them to get steamrolled, and they kind of did. But I think Rogue
by Vitality, no less. Sorry.
That's a super team!
Rogue has to be able to make it at some point. Like, they just made it to the final. They must have been able to learn so much from spring. Like, at least Rogue just played an LEC final. They looked really solid overall in playoffs. A lot of their players have been trying to make it to Worlds for so long. Like, well, actually, some of them were in there in 2020, I guess. But whichever way, I could see them making it to Worlds. I think they should be making it. But this is part of what makes LEC so exciting right now. That it's so open. Like, in theory, maybe Astralis, maybe Misfits are gonna, go absolute beast mode and make it into playoffs and show up. Like, you never know what's gonna happen.
That is what's terrifying, is that the bottom tier teams actually have teeth on them. And even if like don't get me wrong, Vitality is definitely not going to Worlds, but they could be the deciding factor of who does go to Worlds. And that's terrifying.
I imagine BDS beats like Fnatic in the final game of the season. Fnatic don't make it for some reason. Ugh, cursed timeline.
But wasn't that really close? Was it last year where Fnatic was like 1 or 2 games away from not even making playoffs or something crazy?
I mean, I feel like
I
didn't
think it
they
was.
9-9 drag across the finish line?
Yeah, there was something crazy
No,
going
9,
on. I
barely
think it was
9,
sometime
9. I
last
remember
year.
your lines, Frosk.
Yeah, it was the. I even gave Broxah the line. I was like, Broxah died for this.
For this, yeah. It was when Selfmade replaced you. It was 2019. Anyway.
Turning to the LPL. At the time of this recording, currently, Victory 5 are undefeated and, to quote, I will dominate, look like the best team in the world.
Yep.
Confirm? He's right.
100%.
Yeah,
Best team in the world.
confirm.
They just demolished EDG. I watched it 2 days ago. Was it 2 days ago or 1 day ago? Like, they're beasts. Caster's a jungle monster. Photic and PP God are easily the best bot lane in the world.
Say it again.
Photic and PP God? You just want me to say PP God over and over again. What absolute beasts. And now they have Rookie back as well, and Rookie doesn't look like he's missed a beat. That team is absurd. The only person on that team that isn't like star quality is Rich, and Rich is still very good at what he does for that team. So
Can you imagine just being him up in the top lane and just like hearing the announcer being like, an enemy has been slain, an enemy has been slain, and he's just up there just...
like,
but I feel like you need someone like that, right? You need someone who can just sit and chill on their top lane island while everyone else takes care of the job on bot side, right?
I would take that job. Okay.
So, if I could win worlds as well, I'd definitely take that job. Rich is like cruising all the way to a world skin.
Oh, sounds amazing. Now, for those who don't watch LPL, it's a lot of the familiar faces that you would assume are kind of on the top end of the standings. Maybe some curious ones from anyone's legend peeking there in 5th, but otherwise, it is all about Victory 5. We just listed some of the star-studded names, which even if you haven't watched the LPL, you definitely know the name of Rookie. Maybe not the legendary PP God, even though people like to make fun of his name. They're currently 16-2. They've only dropped 2 games, 8-0 in terms of series. Do we think that this is going to be a T1 undefeated finish? I'm going to answer for you guys. There's no way in hell. No team in the LPL ever goes undefeated. I think the last team who did it was EDG and OMG. And that was a very long time ago. There are too many games, too many teams, and too much bullshit.
That's about right. Yeah, yep. I think like what T1 did was impressive, but actually doing the same in LPL with
twice as many teams.
So many games, yeah, so many games, so many teams, so much craziness, so much aggression and cheesy strategies. Like that would be something else.
Yeah, we just saw, I think it was FPX versus JDG, and FPX finally had their pop-off moment, and I think it was only Ox that thought that FPX were going to win that series, so crazy stuff happens in the LPL all the time, so I am not really holding out for Victory 5 having an undefeated season. That said, it does seem like they're going to be the Worlds contenders, and then joining them, for me, it's basically a toss-up. If you want to go safe, you could go JDG and Top Esports, but I think you can never really count out Weibo, RNG, or EDG, especially when playoffs comes around. There's just something about these historic LPL teams, maybe that best of 5 experience that Medic is talking about, that they find that 6th gear when it gets into playoff time and then just start running people over.
FPX are my dark horse now as well. Now that Summit's joined them and looks like one of the best top laners in the league.
They look much better.
I can't believe it. It helps when Doinby plays Gragas and goes like 0-2-3 and has no impact in the game at all. But yeah, FPX I think could actually be a contender for one of those world spots. They get 4, I assume, LPL again this year because reigning champs of everything forever. So they have a few spots.
Favorite race is down all the way at the bottom in 16th and 17th. Invictus Gaming versus Team WE. This is the old school CLG TSM matchup in LPL, and I just love that it's who's going to be the worst.
I was going to say the same, like seeing LGD, IG, and World Elite like down at the bottom, it feels so strange to me. It's like, what a timeline.
LGD deserves it. They're famous for a hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah, and you can buy it at their studio. Or I guess
I'm bad for Shadow though,
yeah.
He's a good player.
He's also just a sweet kid.
Whenever I see LGD, I feel bad because I remember 2020 Worlds, they were in play-ins. while I was in CL, and they got flamed so hard. I remember there were like Reddit threads and things on social media like showcasing how hard people were flaming them in China. It was like some of the most brutal stuff I've ever seen in the League of Legends pro scene. And like now those hardcore LPL fans are seeing the LGD in bottom 3 in the league. Whew.
Yeah, it's rough.
Cannot be fun being a player there right now.
I mean, they did make it out of play-ins though, which Mad Lions were unable to do. They were the first major region to get knocked out.
They did make it out.
I mean, LGD went 1-3. I'm looking at it now. Mad Lions went 1-3 in groups and then lost to Supermassives, and LGD went 1-3 in groups, beat Rainbow Seven, then beat Legacy, and still managed to pick up 3 wins in a group with TSM in it. So
I remember LGD's AD carry at the time during that, and I think he was playing Jhin, and he opened up his Jhin ultimate for the team fight in front of him, and then a straggler, like ran away. He closed his ult and chased after him away from the team fight, and I was like, where are you going? And at that point, I was like, oh my Jesus, this is going to be a rough one, boys.
Yeah, that was Cream, I think. I think he's not even playing anymore. Like, he retired after LGD. It broke him.
LGD is just the retirement home. Oh no, sad. I think there's too many
Peanut
teams.
was on that roster as well. Peanut's had a re-glow up, I guess, because he was he was high, and then he went LGD, and he was like not that great, and now he's back on Gen G. He's looking like one of the best junglers in LCK right now.
I'm going to say Peanut was probably fine on that roster. I'm going to say it was probably the other things around Peanut that were causing problems. And Peanut probably didn't help. He was probably like, people are talking to me, what?
But it's funny how you say he wasn't that great, but he still made top 4 in LPL, right? Which is pretty.
I mean, sure, yeah, I guess, you know, like
when you think about it, it's actually pretty.
For Peanut, you know.
It tells you what happened to the rest of the teams that year. It was an absolute circus. Okay, team. Anything else we want to cover here? Any more leaks? No, nothing.
No, Belveth's still strong.
I have been playing Enchanters in solo queue. Thank you for the tips, guys. We are cruising all the way towards platinum right now. It is the easiest time of my life.
I think
which ones are you playing? Are you?
I'm a
which
Janet.
enchanters are you playing? Any Yumi?
Janet, Lulu. I can't stand Yumi. She breaks my brain. It's so boring.
I was just like, Seraphine is strong too.
Seraphine's like the strongest champion in the game.
Every time I see Seraphine, I actively go out of my way to ruin her life.
Good.
And at my ELO, people just play it like Sona, and they have no idea what they're doing, so it's fine.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, healing's mega busted at the moment. The amount of red canes I watch just like heal up an entire health bar 3 times in a fight is so frustrating.
I'm sorry for your loss.
I have the same memories of Aatrox. Oh my god, whenever I see this champion, I get nervous. There's just a lot of healing, as you're saying.
It's like, here's my health.
Riot, please buff healing reduction again. Like, what? It's crazy.
Okay, here's our new thing we're going to do. Give me a very short tip for people in solo queue. Medic, you first, then Broxah.
If the enemy plays enchanters, leave the lane as support. Just go everywhere else. Let your AD carry farm by himself. Go kill everyone else. They won't expect you. They're dumb. You're smart. You can gank.
You're smart. Broxah?
Ban Yumi. Yeah, that's
excellent.
That's better than mine.
Okay, that is all for us for this episode of Recall. Reminder, guys, that we'll be back in 2 weeks like we are every single time. Be sure to check out all of the incredible matches that we have this week. And until then, see you later.